Vino Lion Media presents Business First.
Hi, all, and welcome to a new episode of Business First with Sonia and Wayne. I am your host, and today we're going to talk a little bit about real estate and mortgages. And our guest in studio today is a mortgage broker who has started his own company. Wayne Stuart has started the company J&W Lending LLC. Welcome, Wayne.
Hello, Sonia. How are you?
Good. Thank you for being a part of the discussion today. Mortgages can be a tricky, what can I say? Tricky and complicated process for a lot of us, and particularly for first home buyers. And so one of the things that you pride yourself in is keeping the home mortgage process simple. And so why was that important for you when you started your company?
Because I sat on the other side of the table. I was the guy going through the mortgage, and I was the one getting frustrated. Why are these people not answering my questions? Why do they make it so complicated? Why are they asking for this document, that document? I gave them that document, and it says the same thing in another document. Why are we going back and forth? That's why I want to keep it simple. I want to be a friend to my client who's trying to get through this process.
Right. And your background was in accounting, was it not?
Public accounting, yes. Audit, tax.
Okay. And so how did you make the leap? Was it really that simple of you going through the process and being totally frustrated and then saying, you know what, I think this is where my calling is, or I think this is where I can help, or I think this is what's needed in the business space, in the marketplace?
The nature of me getting into mortgages was simply because I wanted to try something else as a side business. I enjoyed it more than I enjoyed the accounting. My weekends were mine in mortgage, as opposed to during tax season where you have to work 55 to 60 hours a week. And then when you do the 60 hours, the partner will call you and say, we don't make money by you just working 60 hours a week. So you basically roll out the cot, take a nap in the office, that kind of thing. So I wanted to have something that was mine to show that all the education that I received and all of the experience that I had, could I monetize that and make it prove my worth as an contributing factor to the business.
All right. I always like to get a sense of our guests, their journey. And so even in terms of accounting, what was it that made you pursue that as a career goal?
Well, I had gotten out of service and I was going to try to find something that would occupy my time. As my sergeant told me when I got out, he says, you need to find something that's going to challenge you. So I considered the standard routes of law and doctors and so forth and so on. And I said to myself, well, if I go into a normal field, they're going to retire me at 65. I wanted something that I could control the time and work as long as I wanted to and whatever I wanted to. And accounting touches all aspects of business, from people running a doctor's office, law office, anything of that nature. So I decided to do accounting because it gave me the freedom to be in any industry, be part of any industry. I didn't take it seriously until one day I was talking to somebody to ask them a question, and they said to me, everything you need is found in a book. So look it up yourself. So then I started catch on fire for the accounting, and I started to pursue the degree itself. Got a master's in it. Worked in very aspects of the accounting field, in consulting, in directing, in training, in trying to pass on what I've learned in the techniques to my peers and the people coming behind me as a mentor. That's my story. Most of my story, as you've known, is somebody tells me from when we were both back in the day, you can't do it. Oh yeah, let's try that.
Right. Right. And so, but you've also considered, in our pre-conversations, you consider yourself the odd man, or the odd man out, the person who would never not necessarily follow traditional steps, which is which is almost by definition what an entrepreneur is, right? Somebody who sees an uncharted path and decides that, you know what, let me see what this looks like. Let me see where this will take me, and let me see how I can serve humanity or my community in this way. Is that how you see yourself as a true entrepreneur because you consider yourself an odd man?
Well, for years, I was talking about the entrepreneur part. For years, I fought that. I went into the quote unquote go to the right company, get the right education, and when I stopped fighting it, that's when I became the happiest, as being the odd man out, as taking the road less traveled, as because I don't fit in a cubicle, for lack of a better phrase. I,
Mhm.
I have to be out there. I have to be deal making. I have to be touching every aspect of the deal, making sure it works, following up with the deal, even after the deal's closed, making sure that I've covered all my bases because I can either please or I can serve. And in this job, I plan to serve.
Right. And I'd like us to spend a little bit more time there for people in, the Gen X generation. Um, because that we were taught to make sure that we toe the line, get the right education, go to the right schools, go to have the right jobs. My nephew just quit his job because he just felt like it was time, right? He didn't necessarily have something to go to. He's taking his savings, he's traveling like that would. And I recently, I attended a funeral last week, and I was talking to a woman about 10 years older than I, and she was complaining that her daughter was not like, she said, our generation, where we found a good job and we stayed with it. And that's what allowed us to retire. And she was expressing all of this frustration with her daughter because of those things. What was that moment where you decided, you know what, I can take the risk and do something different? I can take the risk and, you know, do something that satisfies my soul and is, may make my family uncomfortable, may make the people at church a little uncomfortable, but it's going to satisfy my soul to take this risk.
You ever heard the old saying that if you do something over and over and over again, it comes out the same result? That's called insanity. I got
Mm-hmm.
tired of living the insanity. I put faith in companies that I thought would be there, and they're entrepreneurs in their own right, and I work for them. But if the boss wakes up tomorrow and says, "Hey, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm out of a job," that kind of security is not security I'd like to live with. I chart my own path. I seek out my own faith. I try to do things myself. So why would I then negate what I do in my own personal life to live a life that's not really fitting me?
Absolutely. I quit my job in 2019, and we recently had a guest on our show who, and I know this from because the business publication I used to work for, all of the experts said the same thing, that when you decide to leave, you should have at least 2 to 3 years savings in an account so that you can manage your bills. And I did not do that, and so I'm curious, as an accountant, right? Someone who's a little more financially savvy, much more savvy than I. Was that your plan as you were leaving? Did you say, "All right, let me put some money aside. Let me figure out what this is going to look like," or did you leap?
I just left. I just left. I mean, it's nice to want to put money away, but if we look at economics as it stands, prices rise, demand and supply go the way they go, and we can't save enough money because things are constantly changing in the market. So a gallon of gasoline is $3 one week, and it's $6 next week. Apartment is, when I was living in New York, apartment was like $2,700 for an apartment, and now I'm down in Texas. It's like half of that, and I have a mortgage. You can't plan for a sickness. The doctor bills will kill you. You can't plan for life's mishaps. So, in wanting to leave, the first thing I had to do is stop being an employee in my mind, because I go punch the clock, I do what they tell me to do, and I get the job done. But it's a lot different when you are working as your own person. You have to get up in the morning and decide how to make what you're doing effective, how you can then go ahead and produce something that monetizes to bring you to the life or better than you had before in the form of money and a way of life. So my point is this: you can plan, you can prepare, but plans change and preparations fail. So you just go for it. You go forward with it and you keep going and you keep going. And so sometimes where I feel kind of down because of like, I'm not getting the clients I want, or I'm not getting the kind of monies on each deal that I'm getting. And then inside my spirit just says, go, keep going, go, go, go until you get to the end of it. Because most people fail and quit, and then they never realize the true value of their venture. So no matter what people, no matter how I don't have the clients come in as I'd like to sometimes, or no matter how things go, I'm going to keep going because I can't quit on myself.
Let's talk about that a little bit too. We hear a lot of stories. I was talking to someone not too long ago, and I remember when entrepreneurship was this thing that only the brave did, right? Like if you knew somebody had gone out and decided to start a company, that was just it was almost a heroic type of feat because no one did it. Like today, we have entrepreneurship courses in college. We're teaching it at the high school level. We're creating programs at the high school level, and our social media is filled with entrepreneurs, and so we see a lot of the success stories. But talk to us a little bit about what the struggle is like, and where your frustrations have come in, and how you've been able to manage them. You said you don't, you refuse to quit on yourself. But what are some things that you have uh, that you've had to really figure out how to overcome on this journey?
I had to learn to overcome objections. As a person working for somebody, they hand you the work. They say, "Here's the work. Get the work done. Bring it back to us. We get paid by the client." Um, I already have the objections. Like I already have somebody. You don't fit. What we need. We're 2 months too late. There's also some reason that they shouldn't use me or could use me, and I escape that by trying to realize that it's not that I'm performing a service to them that they can either choose to choose or not choose. It's a service that if they choose, it won't be to their best benefit. So I have a client last week who talks to me about I'll buy a house within a year, and they're crying about the interest rates now and how much things cost now. Well, imagine what it's like in a year. So I try to address to them that you might have to save. Yes, you might have to do things, but the thing is, you can't wait a year because if you're complaining about 4% interest rate, it might be 6% interest rate. If they tighten the regulations, it changes your structure of what you're trying to plan. So objections are one of them. The next thing is having the resources that I can count on. I'm a broker by trade. That means I have to work between people. I have companies that when they sell me their product, it's the best thing next to sliced bread. There's nobody that like them, and it's so wonderful, it's fantastic. And then when I get a case and they don't have the technical skill that they've sold me, I then have to turn around and fix the problem. And I had a couple of cases like that where the deal would have been lost if I didn't put my hands into it and say, this is what we need to do, this is what we need to. So in all these fields, you have to know who you are and you have to know where to interject yourself into situations. If you cannot put yourself into the situations where you can make a change, then that's not a place you should be because you're back to being an employee, punching a clock, doing the thing that made you leave.
Tell us a little bit about your company, the services you offer, and why you've chosen the services to offer through.
I want to be competitive. The company name is J&W LLC. J is my wife Judy. Wayne is me. We've been partners for 20 some odd years, and we're partners in everything we do. We talk about everything. Sometimes to my own chagrin, because sometimes I tell my wife too much, and I have to live with it. We offer the standard conventional products, FHA, BA, conventional loans. We also offer alternative aspects of the market. So those who do not draw a W-2 or have a tax return, if you're self-employed, we offer a thing called the self-employed aspect where we look at 1099s or we look at bank statements or things of that nature. Then for investors, we offer a thing called DSCR, which what it does is it looks at the property and not so much the income and the monies that the person has in their possession. All we're interested in is that based on this property, if they have rents that exceed 10% of what they're trying to borrow, that's a good deal. And then we deal to foreign nationals, so people that come here to buy property outside the country. We deal with ITIN people to help them buy properties. My goal is this. If you come to me, I want to make sure that what I've promised you. It's not, well, we tried it and it didn't work. I take all of my clients very seriously. I take trust very seriously. I take my promise very seriously. And I do everything I possibly can to satisfy the needs of my client. Not pleasing them, but servicing them.
And so, how do you feel that has separated you or helped you stand out in the marketplace?
Well, for those who come to me, I yield results that they haven't expected. So let's say a loan takes 20 days. I try to close it as fast as possible because I know people's time is valuable to them. I've done that with a few loans in the past. For people who are in, let's say they go to one of those companies that is not the traditional way of buying real estate, like Open Door or those other kind of companies, it's usually a bit more tricky to navigate that process with them. So I had one deal where they wanted to give up, and I said, no, let me work through the process for you. Let me think. I like a challenge. I like the ability to find answers where there are no answers, because all it really takes to find an answer is to just dig and dig with your heart and soul to get these people a home. If you came to me, you remember the old Allstate commercial, the good hands people? You're in my good hands. And I would make sure, because it takes a second to destroy a reputation, but it takes a lifetime to build it.
It's interesting that when you talked about, if it takes 20 days to close something, that you want to do that sooner. That as an example of customer service is where value is in businesses. And it's sometimes it's hard to get people to understand that. But if you can, because a lot of times in a lot of industries, what will happen is people tend to do things because that's the way they're accustomed to having things done, right? And so in the mortgage process, the idea is it's going to take a long time to close, right? And so people kind of expect those things. And so when you're in business and you can actually create a new expectation for your clients or your customers, that really does increase the value of what you're offering. And so, if you wanted to talk a little bit more about that, it's particularly, I would in real estate, there's a lot of that. There are a lot of things that people just expect that this is the way it's done because we've heard the stories from everybody else who's gone through it. And so if there's some other specific things that you can offer in terms of how you're able to create more value for your customers.
Well, when I was doing audit, okay, because I use transitional skills in everything I do, everything that I learned from school, and we won't go back how far in school, but everything we learned in school, I try to bring into the working world. I try to bring the skills that I learned in audit. For example, when I used to go out and do an audit, we'd send out the requirements for what needed to be done because we go through the audit because we want to make sure they're prepared. I do the same thing with my clients. I want to make sure that before I submit them, that I have everything lined up. Any discussions we have to have, I have them lined up. Any kind of consideration that would come up, I have them lined up. Because good preparation leads to better results. Things might happen. Hey, do you have any problems with your credit? Oh, and we go through the credit process. Oh, I had a bankruptcy 3 years ago. Well, okay, let's talk about that. Because once it gets into underwriting, then that's where the problems begin. Now you have to produce documents and sources that you wouldn't have normally produced if we'd taken the time to prepare. So with me, preparation is king or queen, depending on who it is, as far as dealing with anybody. I think if you come to a situation prepared, you've eliminated all of the options for threats. You develop strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities. SWOT technique. I use all those skills. I bring everything to bear because when they don't see anybody else, they just see me. I represent me. I represent my company. I represent the process. And if I can represent the process in a way that is amenable to them, that they can bring their cousins and their friends and feel that recommending me is a good thing, then I've accomplished my job. Now, all things do not work out all times because you might not have enough money to close. You may not have the right situation to close. You might, like I've been dipping my toe into the divorce pool. Not everybody's prepared when they get divorced to divide up property and have monies to work through the process. So I work with people a little bit longer. If they have a credit situation, I have a vertical market which I'm working within. I have connections in the credit, which will then help them straighten out their process. If they have legal, I have lawyers that will help straighten out that process. I try to recommend people to different people, and that helps me be, even though I'm a one person, I have a bigger market to choose from.
But I think what's powerful about what you do, which again I think will always help to increase value, is that you don't look at just the home buyer; you look at who the home buyer is. Do you feel like that? At least from our discussion, it sounds like, and the things that I've seen on your website, it's like you understand who the person is who's buying the house. So it's not just we're going to buy a house. This is the price. This is the mortgage rate, and this is the process. This is a single mother. This is a military person. This is, as you just mentioned, this is somebody who may be getting divorced. Um, who the process, right, for each one of those people will be very, very different. And so I would imagine that contributes as well to your the way clients respond to you and the way that you're able to build your clientele.
Yes, my mantra is do unto others. I mean, it's such a simple thing, but it speaks volumes of how I am. I mean, I've been, like I said, I was the guy on the other side of the table. My wife and I, listen, well, you need to get this document. You need to get that document. You need to do this. You need to do that. And I was like, why? I had one mortgage person tell me, and it's in the rules, that if you have a vehicle with 10 payments or less, it's not counted against your income. It's not counted against your debt. But yet they made me pay my car off because that's what they wanted to do. So now, knowing the rules of the game, I'm a spoiler. I'm a spoiler for my clients who come to me and say, they want us to do this. No, we're going to do it this way. Or I get a lot of clients say, well, I went to one person, they never called me back. And then they call them back 10 days later. Oh, I've already been processed. Because once I get a hold of somebody's situation, it's serious. It's important. And people fail to realize that. If you care enough about yourself and you care enough about your clients, then you do a good job. If it's a 9 to 5, then it's not going to work. I start some days, some mornings, I start 6 o'clock in the morning, my time, and I finish 1 o'clock in the morning, my time. Because if I need to get the job done, you can get ordinary anywhere. Anybody walking down the street is ordinary. But when people come to me, I'm hoping they will find extraordinary.
As part of your expansion and your goals for the future, is teaching is that part of your goal? Because you do offer a lot of information just in the servicing of your clients. Is that something that you'd like to expand or extend?
Well, part of my process that I deal with clients is, first thing, I educate them. So even if they come to me or don't come to me, I'm going to make sure that they don't get taken advantage of. So I'm going to give them the who, what, when, where, and why of the situation. I have always wanted to be a teacher. Well, no, let's you know me, so I always wanted to be a teacher. Because it's like they drone on about the same subject on and on and on. But as I matured and I grew, I saw the value of teaching, making sure that, because there's a lot of misconceptions out there that people will go along a path and they're wrong just because they heard this and they think it's that and it's not that. And that's a disadvantage that I feel people shouldn't have. I like to see everybody win, if at all possible. When people win, I say, hey, my time's coming next. I mean, that's how I am.
Oh, very good. So what next? What next for J&W Lending LLC?
I just want to grow. I just want to service my clients. Eventually, I might retire and train somebody in the aspect of what I do. That is a search that's ongoing in my process to find the person that can take over what I'm doing. As far as family to take the business over, I don't have family to take this business over. But I don't want to leave my passions and things of that nature, a company that I build, just to, after I'm gone, just to fade away into nothingness. Because I think what I offer I think the model that I offer can be used in something that can help somebody else move forward.
Wow, it's a topic that we haven't necessarily explored on this program, but it is one that I would like to. Legacy planning is something that we don't do a lot of in our community. And I worked with, I worked at Black Enterprise, which was a company where Earl G. Graves passed that company on to his sons. But while I was there, I remember we had done some work with Amway, and that family was very specific in terms of the training that they did, the classes that, it wasn't just like, oh, I'm going to, pass this on to my son. They literally they had put them through training and courses, structured courses, so that they understood the challenges, right? The challenges with generation gap, with communications, with all of these different things. So I applaud you for thinking about that. And already knowing, right, that it's not something that it's going to be passed down in family, but knowing that I'm going to build something great, and I want what I've created to be able to live on, even after I'm either retired from it, or I've passed on.
My concern is this: I remember back when I first got out of school and started working, people would take the time to train you, to bring you along. I had mentors when I got out of school after I got out of the military. Even in the military, they trained us to do what we needed to do. When I got out of school and I started working as an accountant, my first boss was my mentor. He said, "Wayne, everything you learn in school, forget it, because the business world doesn't work like that." And he took me by the hand. He trained me to go through the process, how to make it look appropriate, how to do my analysis, stuff of that nature. Now I look at society today and the way things are going, and I'm like, you come out, they grab you, they give you the job. If you stay, you stay. If you don't, you don't. And then when the quality passes, it's like, well, can you do this? Well, I don't know. I mean, I've looked at resumes and I've trained people and I've hired people and fired people. And the thing is, what I find as a problem is they craft this wonderful resume. And then when it comes time to do the stuff, they can't do the stuff. So I've taken people under my wing and I've said, hey, you can't do a bank rec. Let me show you how to do a bank rec. You can't do a cash flow. Let me show you how to do a cash flow. You can't structure a deal. Let me show you how to structure a deal. Because there are things I'm going to want my way and the way I run my company. And I want them to be able to I want to set them up for success. I don't want them to walk out of the door and say, well, I tried my best, but I didn't do all that I could. If we can do all that we can and it still doesn't work out, well, we tried our best. But it's not building confidence by letting people try, fail, and walk away. It's like being a parent. It's like being a friend. It's like being all those other things. It's a love for myself that I extend to other people.
Right. And I think that's it's interesting. I think that, again, if you were a Gen Xer or baby boomer, some of our training, made us rigid and made us afraid to leap. But we did believe in training. Like, we did believe in, like, learning before you attempted. And I think for those folks, that is a benefit in terms of even what we can share with younger people today. In terms of, like, we love the fearlessness of young people today. We love that they will just leap. We love that they will move with their heart and move with their spirit. But I think where we can be really good teachers or guides or coaches is that we did understand the importance of the discipline with that, and the training, and making sure that your I's are dotted and your T's are crossed. So yes, I also commend you for, we have to stop seeing ourselves at odds with the different generations. We have to really just start taking from each, right? And learning from them, and they learn from us, and finding ways to work better together. So what else can we expect from your company as you continue to grow and grow your clientele?
Well, I have become more technologically savvy as opposed to, I worked on my first, what do you call that thing? I worked on a PowerPoint, I think it's called a flip book, a pitch deck. I worked on my first pitch deck. It's kind of raw. I'm working on it, but years ago, this isn't something I wouldn't have tried. And I learned that from consulting with a younger fellow who was 30 something years old, but it made sense to do it because
Mm-hmm.
I saw the value of it. So I'm becoming more business uh more business oriented as opposed to being a technician, you know, balance sheets and so forth and so on. I'm becoming more it's opened me up in ways that make me a CEO. Never imagined it. I knew that I'd always do something where I'd be technologically savvy and run a process, but now to run the whole entity is a good thing. So I expect me to grow. I expect us to have more conversations so we can talk about how I'm growing. And if you need me back on the show, I'd love to show. This is my first podcast ever. A little hesitant about it. This was easy because it's like having a conversation, as you said. That's been our relationship. As you said, if I listen to you, it goes easier. I let my imagination go and I listen to you. So I will do more of this kind of stuff. I feel more comfortable doing Zooms and things of that nature because normally my Zooms where the camera is off and I was just talking. So no net, no safety line. I'm just out here. I plan to take those kind of risks and take those kind of movements with my company. No net, no safety line. Just pushing what I know forward, building on what I don't know to become better at it, and bringing a group along to help me grow the company. Someday I could transfer the company to after I'm no longer doing this. But right now, I plan to have a lot of fun doing this. I'm looking at the market. The DFW area is a lot different from New York, where properties run $600,000-$700,000. Down here, like $100,000, $200,000. So I'm going to contemplate the idea of doing some purchasing some single family residences, and building a portfolio and giving it all to my family. What do I need money for?
Exactly. I mean, that's what we do, right? We work. It's never always just for ourselves, right? It's to be able to build our families and our communities. And congratulations on doing your first podcast. Everything that you said is what this show is about. It's about having conversations so that we can see that we're all in the same place. Those of us who are dreamers, those of us who want to start companies, those of us who want to impact our communities, those of us who want to make changes. Um, you know, that's all that we're here for, to be able to have these conversations, hear what people are doing, be inspired by what they're doing, learn from mistakes, learn from other people's mistakes, and then just keep going and be as supportive as we can to each other. So we are so glad that you joined us, and we would love to have you back as you grow and to hear how you're developing and leaping and taking new chances. Where can we find you? Those of us who may want to be clients or customers.
Well, yeah, I am in the DFW area. I'm in Fort Worth, Texas. But if you're going to do an investment deal, I can go all over the country. So I've done deals in Georgia, Atlanta. I plan to expand into other areas as I see the market grow for me in that area. So if I start seeing a need for clients in Georgia or California or wherever, I just take a test because my license is a federal license. I
Okay.
take the test and I just start opening in that area. One thing I'd like to add before I close is that to let your listeners hear this word from somebody who is in business for himself. Mistakes are okay. We all make them. It's how we learn from them that we move forward. Um, don't beat yourself up about it. It's just a way of, it's just examination of what you've done, fixing what you've done is the best way to correct a mistake. Um, but most of all, don't beat yourself over about it because it takes time to get to where you need to get to, and the time is well worth it. So you can only move as fast as you're prepared to move. Closing remarks.
Those are no truer words to be said. What's your website?
jwlendingllc.com.
Okay. And are you on social media or not yet?
I'm gonna get there.
You're gonna get there.
I'm on social media. Put a few pictures up here and there, but the business is not on social media.
Okay. Right. So then repeat the website again.
JW Lending. So my wife is Judy. My name is Wayne. jwlendingllc.com.
Okay. Alrighty. So we will visit you there.
That's another hurdle I have to cover, putting the business on social media, because it's all about content. Not so much what I want to say, but what people need to know.
Right.
And I have to figure out how to find out how and why and what people need to know. That's another hurdle I have to cross. But the thing is, that's the fun of doing your own business.
And you're in direct contact with your customers. And so what I always tell people is just listen to what your customers, it's not that difficult. It's just listening to what your customers are saying and keeping records of what they say. And some things will repeat it and some things will be new, but it'll give you such insight. If listening is a big part of communicating. It's probably the most important part of communicating.
Well, my grandfather used to tell me, my grandfather's not a man of college or a man of letters or numbers, but he said to me one very simple thing. He said, you have 2 eyes, you have 2 ears, and you have 1 mouth.
Exactly.
Watch, listen, and keep your mouth shut.
See, excellent business advice. Even though there are times where you're gonna have to open your mouth. But yes, the listening and the watching is so important. In this business. And to your grandfather's point, like sometimes we just, we want to talk about what we're doing, or we want to show what we can do, or we want to present from our perspective. Our perspective is important because the ideas come for us and we're the vessel that's going to deliver it. But in that process, a big part of it is the importance of listening and watching and allowing that to expand the vision that you have. So, Wayne, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for the insight. We wish you the best in your endeavors and look forward to having you back.
Thank you, Sonia.
And for those of you listening, thank you for joining us today. And we look forward to hearing from you about these stories and what you feel. And please stay tuned. Next week, we'll have another dynamic guest for you. Take care.
The Business First podcast is hosted and produced by Sonia and Wayne. Associate producer, Ariel Mancivo. Executive producer, Ken Johnson. Find the Business First podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, or wherever you get your podcasts. And on social at business_first_podcast on IG. The Business First podcast is a Mean Old Line Media production.